Hello everybody, I'm going to do a review on this 10-inch 2.5 horsepower tile/brick saw I picked up from Harbor Freight. This is item number 69275 for reference. These retail for $3.99. It was on sale for $239.99. I applied a Mother's Day 25% off coupon, so I picked this up for $179.99 plus tax out the door. It came in a huge box, so big it would not fit in my wife's SUV, so I had to break it out of the box at the store just to get it in the car. Just something to I took a quick peek through the manual, and it's kind of like the rest. They show components that do not exist. I'll note those as I get there, but I'm going to go ahead and show the assembly as well. I also did purchase the matching stand, which is called a foldable stand, but it only folds when the saw is not on the stand, so buyer beware if you pick that up. I will be mounting it to it first so it's easier to shoot the video, but the stand itself is item number 69325. Retails for $69.99. It was on sale for $57.99. Another 25% off coupon, so $43.49 plus tax on that deal. Kind of a small mini review within the review. Alright, well the first thing I'm doing is installing the actual saw to the stand itself. There are 4 pins that stick up off this stand. The stand itself comes with these 2 sets of bolts here. One of them will go under here in the middle. There's a hole, you just have to feed it up, kind of wiggle it around, and then tighten that up. And there's another one right down there in the middle at the other end. Do the same thing there. Here's a quick shot of the optional stand. It is a great quality. It was 100% fully assembled, and it came with the 2 bolts and washers as noted in the last clip. Now this is the misleading buyer beware. You cannot fold it up with it attached to the saw and transport it and load it, unload it, things of that nature. They are 2 entirely separate units, even though the stand itself does technically fold up. Alright, we're getting ready to install the saw arm frame on here, which holds everything in place. They show in the manual some of these crush sleeves right here, 2 of them. Well, they didn't come with it, nor did they exist in the IPB in the back of the manual. So you should have 4 of these. 1 will go in each of these holes, and then the longer bolt, after you hold the frame up here, will go in here, and then the shorter fastener with the nylock on it will go through this way, and you put the nut on the back side. Just put everything loosely together at first, and then we'll tighten them up. Okay, the saw arm has been installed. Once it was put up here loosely, I ran a little X pattern here just to pull this in lightly, and I did the same thing over here. I just tightened these up lightly to draw this down into that corner. And once everything was seated in there nice and firm, then I went in with an X pattern and tightened these bolts here as well as these 2 here. Okay, well I'm getting ready to install the table, but I wanted to show a couple things while it's upside down. A couple features here. Number 1 is this particle tray that slides out. Hopefully you can see these slots that are open right here. If you have the table pushed kind of far off to the other end, there are troughs in here that run the water down to this area, but this is still yet beyond the actual tray itself. So this particle tray fits in here, and it will actually direct that water into this area and let it fall back into the tray, and that should help minimize escaping water. Now right here is a table lock. When it's flipped over on the opposite rail, I believe there are 3 holes where you can actually engage this pin and lock the table into a certain position. But what I wanted to show the most is the actual rollers here. These are all nylon rollers, and they're all loaded with ball bearings. And on this side right here, there are also roller bearings here to engage on the bottom of the rail slide. These over here are all nylon, but they're floating, so to speak, so all the guiding is happening on these grooved rollers over here. So let's get this thing put on. First and foremost, make sure your lock is disengaged, and hopefully you can see this particular thing right here, the stop. There is a slot in it. In this orientation, it will prevent the table from coming off the front side of the saw. In this orientation, it will allow you to put the table on. So you can see now the table is on there. It's just a matter of lifting, turning, and now the table will stop itself and it won't go beyond this point. Very smooth travel, no bumps, no nothing. If you did have a problem with the saw alignment to the actual fence right here, the backstop, these rails actually have slots in where they're fastened down, so you can actually loosen these up and tilt it side to side and get it perfectly in line to your saw blade from this reference point. The other side, there's kind of runners. They don't really do much, so maybe the only thing you would need to tweak is over here. A step in the manual that was completely omitted was installing this handle right here. It's fairly self-explanatory, but it needs to be installed. The bolts were already installed in the handle itself, so just simply remove those. There's a bolt, a lock washer, a flat washer. Insert them through the back. Alright, now it's time to install the water tray. There's a bung right here, or a stopper, that fits down in this hole. You just want to make sure that's at this end of the saw, because the pump itself sits right down in this reservoir. It's time to install the water pump, and they mention in the manual that you need to set the flow rate of it. There's no flow adjustment on the pump that it came with. I will note that underneath this cover there's a filter that you can clean out, and you should from time to time, to keep the pump operational. They also mention connecting it directly to this hose that feeds out through the bottom of this arm. Well, that's clearly not long enough, but it did come with this other hose, so that is going to be installed right here on the pump. And just simply put the pump down in the reservoir. And this hose will actually be fed over the other one. And it's a pretty snug fit, so that should not leak. Now the power cord will come out over this edge, and this is where it connects to feed power to the pump. Now you want a drip leg down here, or you want this cable to be low slung, so any water that might traverse down this cable cannot make it up into this connector right here. This is the fence that came with the unit. It's marked off in a series of degrees here, but it has detents on 0, 22.5, and 45 degrees. So you can dial this in. Let's say you're making a straight cut. You loosen this, tighten it back up, set it over here, and lock it in. And there you go for a 0 reference. Or if you wanted to change it to a 45, you can change it like so, and then cut and adjust this fence side to side. There are also reference marks on here, looks like in 1/4 of an inch, so you can cut to the left or the right of the blade. I wouldn't necessarily rely on those, but they are there. That completes the assembly of the saw. I'm going to show a few of the adjustment features right here. Number one, this pin will slide in and out to lock the arm down, similar to a chop saw. You can loosen this up, pull your pin, and now it's kind of like a chop saw. You can also set your depth by toggling this in or out and then locking it back in. If you're doing a specific plunge cut, I guess, you can set your depth right there. You can also lock it in right here at any given position that you like. Now it does also tilt, so you can loosen this one up. It's on 0 right now and it'll go all the way to 45, and it has one mark in the middle at 22.5. Those are the only 3 angles you can cut by tilting the blade, because the blade itself needs to ride down in these grooves or these slots in the table. You can't do anything in between, you're going to contact the table. So set it where you wish, and there you go. It does have positive stops at 0 and 45 that you can adjust, and I really like that, so you can really tailor it in and get it perfectly 90 degrees to the table. Same with 45. 22.5, you're going to have to use a different measuring tool, or just take that for granted that that is 22.5, but I highly doubt that. If you were installing a new blade or changing a blade, this is the spindle lock button right here. You push it in and that will lock the spindle, so you can get on it with your wrench and take off or install and tighten up a new blade. Alright, to install a blade or change the blade, loosen this up here and this cover will open up. I'm going to take the arbor nut off. And take off this flanged washer. I'm going to be testing and trying a KD King Diamond Tile Pro blade. This is a 5/8 arbor blade. It is marked for rotation, so make sure you get your blades on there correctly. Install the outer flange. Bring in the nut. Find the spindle lock. I'm pressing on it with my fingers. There it is. And tighten up the blade. Good to go. These are the only modifications I've made to the saw. Right here on the top there's a set screw, but it doesn't tighten all the way up into this. It just goes down into a groove, so you can move this in and out. It was quite loose, so I put a little bit of blue thread locker on there and locked it in to where it's free, so that cannot move or get out. The second one being, here's one of the handles here where you tighten it up. Stamped washers, they always have a burr or a sharp edge on one side, and whenever you put that up against a sliding surface like this, like on an aluminum casting, over time it will chew it up. So simply turn that to where the smooth side goes in, and it will prevent it from chewing up that casting. Secondly, these handles with just a single washer here, they're kind of difficult to tighten up and loosen up, so I'm just simply adding a second one. And again, the sharp edge is going to go down towards this, and then the next sharp edge will go on here. And then once this is put back in place, it makes it a lot easier to loosen this up as opposed to having just one washer on there. I did the exact same treatment right here. I added a secondary washer behind it, and it makes this very easy to tighten up real tight, but yet still be able to get it loose easily. Without that on there, you kind of have to struggle.